What's up everyone, it's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and this usually wouldn't be a topic I would talk about. Well, in relation to the genre and type of game it is, it's something I usually wouldn't talk about. But on the back end of it, with the kind of implications that are going on with it, is definitely why I want to talk about it. And this one is going to come in pretty important with you guys that are actually watching this video, because I don't know much about this from the consumer standpoint, the specific consumer standpoint that this will be targeting. So I'm going to need your opinions on this, because it's just not aimed at me, basically. But anyway, let's get into what we're talking about here. The CEO of EA, aka Andrew Wilson, or as I prefer to call him, Mr. Sports. Anyway, he went on to talk about the future of their sports games and their sports series. The FIFA games, the Madden games, the NHL games, etc. And he was talking about what's the potential future in them and how they're going to change, how they're going to grow, and what may be done very differently. And specifically, one thing he brought up is that FIFA, for example, and we'll assume Madden and NHL, would also be possibly changing to, instead of a yearly based game, a yearly based iteration that you'd go out and buy for €75 or whatever it is every year, that they would instead change over to a subscription service of some sort. So instead of going out and buy FIFA 17, then next year you'd buy FIFA 18, and then next year you'd buy FIFA 19, and then FIFA 20, instead you would possibly subscribe to FIFA and be able to play, or possibly download and play FIFA, or stream it, or whatever it is, and you could do that as long as you kept up the subscription. So he added that it's not much of a known thing, but they actually do this already in certain markets. For example, to quote Andrew Wilson himself, in Korea or China, we don't do it that way. About every 4 years, we release a big new code drop and offer incremental changes over time. So essentially what he's saying they do there is that maybe they release a proper new game every 4 years, and then over the course between those 4 years they possibly have it as a subscription service or whatever, and that it would download and add in the new patches and changes and whatever in those 4 years while you're subscribed, or whatever you want to call it. Now this ties into something that I've mentioned in the past, and this is, well, it kind of does. I gave an example recently of Need for Speed. Not the current, well, would it be the current? Not the upcoming Need for Speed. I think it's called Payback. But it's the one that came out about 2 years ago. The whole street racing one that has, for some unknown reason, an always online connectivity requirement. Now, the reason why I've brought that up in the past is that there's a big discussion going on in gaming at the moment that companies want to make gaming as a service rather than sell you a game, possibly sell you some DLC, and that's it. They want to do the whole gaming of a service thing. Gaming as a service even. And when it comes to unnecessary always online DRM requirements like Need for Speed, for example, because of everyone that I've talked to, they said that the online, the always online aspect of it offers them absolutely nothing, and it just becomes a hindrance 99.9% of the time. But the reason why companies do this is, one, to an extent it prevents piracy. Okay, that's to a degree the truth. There's no denying that whatsoever. But the main reason that they do this is that when they decide to stop supporting this game and make a new one, if you want to play Need for Speed, let's just use Need for Speed as the example. If you want to play Need for Speed, when they shut off those servers, you have to go and buy the new one and buy the upgrade or buy the whatever iteration or version of it if you want to play Need for Speed. Because your game was an always online game, even if you're playing by yourself, you can't play that anymore. Now, I realize this is a bit different to the situation that EA are talking about now with the whole subscription-based service on, say, FIFA, or the potential one, but it's all pushing in the same direction, the whole games as a service thing, where we lose more and more of the, I suppose we could call it, ownership of our games. Now, there is a positive and negative to look at it from this side as well. Yes, as the negative side of it, you don't technically own your games. You're only renting them like a Netflix style service in the case of what FIFA will potentially do. But at the same time, depending on the price of this whole thing, to be honest, I doubt it would be cheaper than buying the new thing every year. It wouldn't surprise me if they put it at maybe €5 a month, or maybe even a little bit higher. higher. It would vary on region to region because of the price of new games and all and whatever. And it may potentially lower development costs, which could potentially mean more profit for the company, or it could potentially mean less of a charge for the consumer. But this is EA we're talking about, so it's most likely more profit for them and less value for the consumer. Now, we're almost at the end of this video, but the big thing I want to drive home in this video about this is I am a game collector. I have retro games and modern games for the last 30 years across over 24 platforms. Think of that. Think of how crazy that is. And guess what? These games still work. I still retain the rights to play these games, and as long as they physically work, I can put them into whatever console. Sure, I may have to wipe the disc off or blow in a cartridge or whatever, but these games will still work and will still play. And hopefully 20, 30, whatever years down the line, these games, as long as I keep them in good condition, hopefully they don't have disc rot or cartridge rot, hopefully these all still work. Whereas if this comes to pass, you won't be able to buy a FIFA game. Your old FIFA games will technically still work, I suppose, as long as your console and all does. But it gets to the point where, let's use Need for Speed as the example again. That game, once those servers turn off, is absolutely useless. You have a €70 paperweight, you have a €70 coaster, whatever it is. The game can do literally nothing. So ownership is a big deal. Now, I realize there's probably going to be someone in the comment section below talking about, oh, well, when you buy a game, you don't actually own the game. You own the rights to play the game. You own the physical media the game is on, and you own the rights to play it. Yes, that is technically true. But what if you have, let's say Need for Speed again, you have paid for that license, and now someone else is taking that license away from you. And guess what? That was a full price game, just like everything else. But at the same time, I can understand, this is kind of going into a different point of it, but I can understand why certain people, like, say, look at the big series, Call of Duty, Battlefield, sure, they can call it Star Wars every second year, but it's still Battlefield at the end of the day, FIFA, Madden, NHL, the other sports games. There are games that come out every year with a yearly iteration. Usually FIFA and the other sports games are the biggest ones to get panned for the lack of innovation and just the minor upgrades and the samey content. Now, I'm not saying that, but that's the general perception of the whole thing. I mean, at least Call of Duty gives us a new big story with new big set pieces, locations, whatever. And sure, the gameplay may be very similar. The point is, when you look at FIFA, from what I understand and what people I know have told me, because, well, let's face it, I do have friends that play FIFA, it always feels like a very, very, very minor upgrade. Now, here's where the actual important part comes in, the bit I need you guys for. Because I don't buy FIFA every year. Hell, there's not even games out there that I buy the yearly iterations of every year. I don't buy Assassin's Creed because, well, I was going to say I don't buy Assassin's Creed every year because I don't buy Assassin's Creed. I don't buy Call of Duty. I don't buy whatever Battlefield they put out. I don't buy any of the sports games. The point is that every year when they release iterations of a game, I don't buy them. So I don't have a perfect frame of reference for this. So FIFA guys out there, maybe Madden, NHL, any sports games, let's just say sports games in general, because I know some of the ones wouldn't be made by EA, like maybe WWE or NBA 2K18. But let's just take all sports games as an example. What would you think of this idea if this was to happen to your favorite sports game? If you're a FIFA guy, Madden guy, NHL, WWE, NBA, what's the baseball one? MLB. What would you think when it comes to possibly foregoing having to buy a new copy, maybe losing all your old progress, losing your FIFA Ultimate Team or whatever the fuck they call it, and opting for a subscription style service? Now, what would you think of that? Now, at the same time, I want to hear like every facet of it. I want you to think as much about it as you can. Let's try think of absolutely everything. Roster upgrades, possibly keeping your team, your characters, your progress, whatever, your stats, everything you've put into it, your leagues, your cups, your whatever. What would you think of opting with the subscription style service? Would you pay for it if it was slightly cheaper in that respect? Would you pay for it if it was the same price? Because of the, we'll call it enhanced benefits to carry your stuff over for multiple years, would you deem that worth or slightly more expensive of a price every year via the subscription? Maybe it works out at 80, €85 a year instead of just buying your usual €75 and then everything gets left in the dust a year later. Again, I really need your guys' input on this because I'm not one of the consumers that this would affect, at least in the sports games yearly iteration style of it. So I do need you guys to fill me in on that as much as you can, as much detail as possible in the comments section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.